Hubris, take the stand. Gaming is in session, and I am your judge. Are you a PSVR2 game worth our money, our time, and our listeners' attention? Just like reading a court case in Braille, you didn't see this judgment coming, but here it is. Straddle in. On the first count of real as the doctor's bill after a vasectomy, I bring in the evidence the incredible use of movement and dexterity in Hubris. I've played a lot of PSVR, a lot of PSVR2, and I can say this locomotion and this use of virtual reality is the best that I've ever experienced. Jumping and grabbing onto ledges is wildly realistic. Ducking and dodging around obstacles to shoot enemies is spot on. Swimming is done better than any game I have ever played, flat or in virtual reality. Picking up items, opening doors, crafting materials, climbing, and more just feels so incredible. And these things I feel like aren't just VR gimmicks. They are legitimately used in the game and they are well done. You do them often. And I felt sick when I was climbing mountains or on ledges because I am naturally actually am afraid of heights, and it feels so immersive and the feelings are innate because I fool myself. I think I'm on top of there. And when I look over the ledge, you get that feeling, that innate fear. And it's so awesome to feel that in such an accurate way. You will be crawling, climbing, jumping, running all throughout the game. And it's so wonderful that those feel incredible and are so lifelike. And because of that, on the two counts of real as a doctor's bill after a vasectomy, I do find you guilty.
This is surprising to hear because Hubris is a game that came out before PSVR 2. It's surprising to hear that it has like the best locomotion and VR components of any game you've played. I mean, you haven't played Horizon Call of the Mountain, which is good, but I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's a contender for it. I don't think you've played. You played To the Top, which doesn't have locomotion really, right? It's like you're grabbing stuff, and it's like a glorified version of teleportation. But I mean, even something like Resident Evil, I thought had really good locomotion. Resident Evil 7 did. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of odd.
Yeah. This is better because one, you are more dynamic. I felt like I was hindered a bit in Resident Evil. Like it wasn't made for you to be loosey goosey and jumping and platforming and grabbing ledges. This is much more free movement and just the grabbing onto the ledges and moving. You with the different buttons, you can see like your hands, your fingers move. It's very responsive. The swimming is wonderful. Like you actually make the movements of swimming and move appropriately based on how you move them, whether it's a natural movement or not. I don't know. I was very surprised, and I'm excited for this. I hope this lays a foundation of what developers in the future will do because it is now possible. There is no excuse for bad locomotion, poor tracking, or unlifelike movement in games anymore. I mean, well done.
All right, good to hear. Let's hear the next count.
So I head to the next count, and the reward for VR's first true platformer goes to Hubris. I don't know if this is exactly true. I'm sure maybe there's some platformers in VR. I don't know. But I will tell you this. At times, I feel like this is more of a platforming game than an action game. Again, the jumping, climbing, grabbing ledges, swimming, all that is extremely well done. But at some points in the game, it goes too far. You are literally platforming in this game like I've seen from no other VR game. On one hand, it's cool that we are now to the point where we can accurately jump and actually platform in these type of games. But then on the other hand, I hate platforming games. It is the lowest form of gaming known to man. So although I was impressed with the technical details of it, I didn't love doing it at all. And I did it. And I did it a lot. If you don't mind platforming, you're actually going to love this because, again, it's pretty neat that we can do it. But if you don't like platforming, if you don't like jumping from ledge to ledge, and I mean, the thing is, some of these are pretty difficult jumps, right? So you have to be very accurate. And on the very end of the ledge that you're jumping from, you need to jump, you need the time, and not only do you need to, and you have to perfectly grab onto the ledge, click the buttons at the right time to make some of these jumps. The timing needs to be perfect. And if you don't, if you miss it, you die. Now, thankfully, the autosave is pretty good. You don't go that far back, but it's something that, again, I don't love platforming, so I didn't love it. And there's a lot of it in the game. A lot of the game, you're like, where the heck do I go? What do I do? And it's because you got a freaking platform for the next 10 minutes to get to the next area. But regardless, that could be either a good or bad thing, depending on you, the gamer. But because of that, on the 5 counts of, and the reward for VR's first true platformer goes to Hubris, I do find you guilty. So, Alex, the platforming. What do you think about platforming in virtual reality?
So this is a bit funny to me. I mean, first of all, like, this is the same complaint people had with Horizon Call of the Mountain. It's like, yeah, it's fun to climb the mountain and stuff, but after a while, I'm just tired of climbing mountains. And you know, it works well. I just don't want to do it that much. Now, you complaining about hating platformers and hating doing so much of it and hating how it takes up so much of the game, To the Top is a pure platformer. It is only platforming. That is the only thing you do in the game.
But it's creative and it's fast. This isn't made for you to very quickly jump and kind of, I'm blanking. I'm sorry. What is that?
Uncharted?
Parkour.
Okay.
To the Top is almost like parkour. You're just trying to get to the top as fast as possible. They're creative. This is much more strategic. It's more realistic. It's nothing that you're going to speed run. So I think there's a difference there.
But is the movement and like the climbing and stuff like that and the paths that you take, are they predetermined? Like, yeah, I'm sitting here on the side of the mountain and there's like only one place I can put my hand to move up to the next spot? Or is there some kind of flexibility in where you're going to, how you're going to get to the top of this mountain, how you're going to get around this obstacle?
It's very negligible, the freedom. I mean, sometimes there's a little bit, but the big platforming sessions, it's predetermined, and there's really only one way to go.
Okay, which isn't bad. I mean, it could be good. It could be designed to be a really fun experience, but those things always kind of take me out of it because, like, okay, there's no risk here. Like, there's obviously somewhere for me to go. I'm never going to feel like I got stuck somewhere, which kind of takes some of the tension out of those experiences. But I understand what you're talking about, where it could be too much of a good thing, kind of.
Yeah. So moving to the final count, I do address the counts of giraffe at a penguin convention. And just like a giraffe at a penguin convention, something about Hubris just isn't right. It does so much well. There's combat, gun upgrades, the incredible VR aspects. The game is visually impressive. Tracking works extremely well. Haptic feedback is used. There is a story. I mean, it has everything, but just something isn't right. The plot is possibly the most uninteresting thing known to man. One of the main characters has to be maybe the worst voice actor I have ever heard in my life. The gun shoots lower than you would expect, so it's hard to be accurate on the first 2 shots. The game, through the kind of, you know, through the use of these boring and overused plot devices, like, oh, the elevator is out and you need to grab some fuses and put them in to get it running again. There are times where you have no idea what to do and you have to fight through this tedious and painful dialogue. There's a point in the game where you have to shoot squids and one character says, hey, your gun has a new mode to do this, but they don't tell you how to use it. And I spent 25 minutes learning that, oh, all you have to do is hold down R2. That's not a new mode. That's not even anything new. I want to say it's a low budget Farpoint, but that's not the case because it does a lot of things better than Farpoint. But when you start to add all of these things up, it leads to a rather unsatisfying experience. It's so close to being a must play, but to being a PSVR2 staple, I don't think I can do it. And for some, it still may be. But there's ingredients in this pie, and there's some ingredients that are missing, and it's a dirty, rotten shame. On the counts of a draft at a Penguin convention, I do find you guilty.
So this reminds me of Scraper in a sense. Scraper VR. I don't remember if you played that game, but that's a game that seemed like it had a lot going on, right? They put a lot of effort into the story. The production values were like pretty high for a VR game. There's a lot of content there, and things mechanically worked, right? You could use an aim controller, DualShock Move. You could even use 3D rudder if you wanted to. Like, it had it all, and it all worked well, and it all ultimately kind of felt uninspired. And it's always hard to pinpoint what's wrong with these things. And I think the comparison of Hubris and Farpoint that you bring here is important, because I loved Farpoint, and it's not doing anything amazing aside from great utilization of the aim controller. But it does sound like, just in terms of design, like pacing, where the enemies are going to be, how the enemies are going to act, what it looks like and feels like when you encounter a situation. Those things are important, but they're emergent, and you can't really discuss them technically because it's hard to put your finger on why it does or does not work. And that was my fear for this game. Hubris was like, it could check all the boxes, but in the end, it's like there's just something missing, like a soul to it that's missing. And it's a bit disappointing that you kind of feel that too.
Yeah, I think the plot is a big thing. I mean, I'm sorry. I struggle to think of a game with a worse plot. I mean, it's bad. It's just so uninteresting. I don't know. It's like if you could take this technical ability and put into a different game, you could have a game of the year, but it's not there. So here's the final verdict. Hubris, you have been tried here in the court. You have 4 to 5 hours of gameplay. You're $30, and based on the evidence I've laid out, on the sentence of being a PSVR 2 game worthy of playing, I do find you hung. And here's what I'll say. It's the best single-player sci-fi action game on the PSVR 2. You'll be impressed by the swimming, by the platforming, and even collecting things to craft upgrades is pretty cool. But I have a feeling you're going to agree with me that something is missing. Maybe it's simply the lackluster plot. Maybe it's the fact that the characters have absolutely no depth and the plot is predictable. I'm not sure. You may love the game. It does a lot right, but I cannot classify this as a must play due to all these limitations.